Just a few seconds in an open fire is enough to set ordinary clothes ablaze. And if it weren't for the work of professional pyrotechnics that ensured my safety, I'd have probably died here. And firemen have come face to face with the fiery elements every day. So, what saves those who save us? Today, we'll talk about professional firefighting coveralls. The modern fire retardant clothing of a firefighter, or as the firefighters themselves call it, the bunker gear, is a high-tech suit based on the latest scientific achievements. This applies to both materials and ergonomics. Mikhail, if we look at firefighter coveralls in general, what makes them different from regular clothing, besides the presence of pockets?
Well, we can start with the fact that it's made from an innovative fabric, a meta-para-aramid mix. If you look closely at the fabric, right, you will see a dark thread here. It's armored, reinforced with para-aramid in order to increase the physical and mechanical resistance of this material.
So for braking strength, abrasion protection.
That's right, it's for the braking strength and abrasion protection. So, in other words, it can withstand over 4,000 cycles of abrasion. Its braking rate is very high, over 5,000 newtons. So, then we can see these elements used here that increase the coverall's safety in use, like a fast slip-off zipper. That means in case an emergency situation takes place, the firefighter will be able to unzip his bunker gear.
Wait, I didn't get how you did that so fast.
Let me show you a bit slower.
Just for a regular zipper, something like that would be its last one.
Yes, this one here is reusable. There is a mechanism installed at the end of the zipper here, which allows the zip slider to get out of the drag and actually tear it open swiftly. It has a very ergonomic cut, which takes into account the service environment in particular. Yes.
About this cut, how do you design it?
Well, we always start off with the consumer demand.
So you have firefighting experts developing these suits?
Yes, they actively participate, consult with us, share their opinion, their experience, and we put all that into the design. In particular, for example, we slightly shortened their jacket according to their wishes so that it's more convenient for working in a limited space, bending down and moving around. But to ensure the convection heat doesn't get into the space under the clothing, we made the back part of the jacket a little longer.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you look at the back here, it's a little longer than the front. The sleeve cut is a different thing. It initially has a slightly anatomic shape to make it more convenient to bend.
Okay, how much does a suit like that weigh?
Fighter protective gear should weigh not more than 11 pounds.
For comparison, the first firefighting gear was made of cotton, wool, or canvas cloth. These suits were heavy and hindered movements. They were fireproof mainly due to non-flammable soaked coatings, which simply washed out over time and the suits lost their protective properties. Moreover, the bunker gear got wet quickly, becoming even heavier. And if a fireman works at a place where there's a lot of water being poured, and that's exactly what their working conditions are, if he gets wet, how much will it weigh then?
The weight will increase insignificantly when it's soaked, because, as I'll show you now, we have an porous membrane here, as we can see right there. There is an upper protective layer. It's fireproof. It's heat-resistant and fireproof. The porous membrane prevents moisture from soaking the coveralls, the suit, as well as the soaking of the heat-insulating layer itself, which has the largest volume and weight in the whole material package.
Yeah, so it turns out if you hose a fireman from a water cannon, only this top layer will get wet. Does it have some kind of coating that...
Yes, there is an oil and water repellent coating that protects it from moisture. Well, of course, if you hose someone from a water cannon, any fabric will get wet after a while.
Yeah.
So that's what we have the membrane for, so it doesn't get into space under the clothing.
Fire resistance, water repellents, heat reflecting properties. These are the three basic qualities a firefighter's gear must have. And all of them are put into work at the fabric production stage. This plain-looking thread is the base of any modern firefighter's coveralls. Its fire resistance begins at the molecular level. Not only does it resist fire, but at 680 degrees the carbonization process begins, which means that the thread gets covered with a very thin layer of carbon that reflects heat like a screen. Hundreds of aramid yarn twister tubes are rewound on one large spool, which then is delivered to the loom. One such spool produces about 13,000 linear feet of fire-resistant fabric, each yard of which is then carefully examined for defects. The fireproof fabric passes to the next stage in these big rolls. Here, it will acquire new properties. Firstly, it will be dyed. Secondly, it will be soaked in an oil and water repellent coating, and an anti-adhesive layer will also be added here to make the fabric soil resistant. Aramid fabric dyeing process differs from the usual procedure. The fire-resistant material absorbs the dye at a temperature of over 212 degrees, which is why this process has to be done in an autoclave. After that, the fabric is dried and the oil and water repellent coating is applied on it. After processing, the fabric will be sent for cutting and then to the sewing shop. But the firefighting gear will only get to the fire station after it goes through rigorous quality testing. First, a sample of fabric is tested. I have never seen a washing machine installed in a testing laboratory before, but here it is, required to check how many washing cycles the fabric finish can withstand. Yulia, just how many cycles should it withstand?
Not less than 50 washings.
I see there's a sample of fabric in your hands, right?
Yes.
And how are you going to conduct this test?
This sample is prepared to determine the fire resistance of the fabric. We use the following method. The stretched cloth is loaded vertically into the device, and a stream of fire is applied to the fabric for 10 to 30 seconds, according to the government standards method.
And I see that the flame is applied to the face end, but I heard that the fire should be applied to a flat surface.
There are two methods for determining fire resistance. Our method uses the vertical application of flame to the sample.
So that means this is a more stringent test here.
Yes, this is a more stringent test, and even more so when its run time is set to 30 seconds.
So, let's conduct this test.
Sure.
So, the fire is visible.
It's visible.
But that's not the fabric burning, is it?
It's not the fabric burning, it's the flame that's applied to the fabric. Then we can see after some time the flames.
Everything's ready, right?
Yes, we take the sample out, and as we can see, the ignition of the fabric didn't take place. In areas around it, there's not even a change in the color characteristics of the fabric. We can see a carbon layer formed at the side that was exposed to the flame.
It's the crust, isn't it?
Yes.
Can I take it off?
Of course.
So this is what the traces of the process called carbonization look like, right?
Yes.
So this isn't charring, but a more complex chemical reaction.
Yes, this is the reaction that saves a person's life.
Yeah, and this layer, it always comes out this hard, right?
Yes, it's a firm, hard layer. Yes.
And it loses its elasticity.
Yes.
I mean, I can see it's starting to crack. But I take it this is enough for a person to go through some dangerous place, right? And after that, the suit's already changed, as it turns out. Indeed, it looks impressive. And what if it was regular cotton instead of the fire-resistant sample?
We can test that.
Let's see. 10 seconds as well, under the same conditions.
Yes, the same exact conditions.
So let's run it.
Okay.
So we can see the area affected by the fire is much wider, and it burns much faster.
And the fabric just burns.
That's it, and the fabric keeps burning, despite the fact that the gas supply has been turned off, and the fabric is still burning, and it'll keep burning until we put it out. So let's put it out. Well, it's still smoldering. Yeah, look. So if I keep waving it,
Yes.
I'll smoke your entire laboratory, and the hole will keep getting bigger and bigger. Is there any water here?
In the sink, please.
Well, just to be clear, right? This is the fire-resistant fabric, and here is some regular cotton, which is continuing to burn. And we're going to put it out. The finished protective suits are tested with open fire. The flame is directed on the firefighter protective gear from 4 or sometimes even 8 burners. The test dummy is equipped with sensors that record the heat flow rate and temperature. An open flame at a temperature of up to 1,472 degrees is directed at the dummy for 15 seconds. The objective of such tests is to find out if the suit can protect a firefighter from burns. Every second, the sensors put out information about the temperature under the suit. It should not exceed 122 degrees. And after 15 seconds of testing in an open fire, the threshold values are not exceeded. The bunker gear has passed the test. The modern gear of a firefighter is not just the coveralls, it's a whole complex of equipment, each element of which has its own purpose. So, Maxim, well, here I'm wearing firefighter coveralls. But what do I have to add to these two items to be protected as you are?
The main rule of firefighter gear is that there should be no open areas of the body. To achieve this, we need to, first off, put on the inner liner to avoid further burns on the face and neck. The next element is the fireman's belt. On it, as you can see, there is an axe, gloves that will come in handy, and a portable self-rescue device.
And what's that?
That is for situations when you need to leave the burning floor, but you only have one way out, the window. So you attach it to, say, a radiator, and it's already hooked to your belt.
Yeah?
Then we hook it to a carbine, this small metal device here, and then we go down to the floor below. Its length is 49 feet, enough to go down 5 floors.
And if the room the firemen have to escape from is enveloped in flames, the rope won't burn, will it?
It's not flammable.
Is there a rule on self-rescue device packing?
Our instructions describe all of this, and it's already set to the hot configuration when the fireman enters on duty for a day. Next, we'll put on a helmet.
A helmet. But I've always wondered what the numbers on the helmet stand for. They're all different.
Of course, they're all different. This means that this is the helmet of the head of the 13th Department Subdivision. If the department has a 2-digit number here, then 0 is added. 9 stands for the head of the department, 8 is the deputy head of the department, 1 is for the watch commander and the shift supervisor.
Yeah, so I was lucky and got the department head's helmet.
All helmets have harness systems that reduce the damage received by the fireman in case some construction element falls from above.
So it cushions the blow.
Say that of a brick, yes.
Fits like a glove. Okay, the breathing apparatus.
The breathing apparatus we have here is a 2-cylinder version. The protective power time is up to 120 minutes. You need to pull these straps under your arms. Just take them, jump up and quickly pull them down in the process. Just check if the air is open or not.
It's open.
And now, after you put on the fireman's gloves, you're fully protected from the dangerous fire effects, such as temperature and open flame.
Firefighters are exposed to massive thermal loads throughout every minute they spend in a fire. Even without direct exposure to the fire, it's impossible to survive without protective equipment in such conditions. We decided to conduct a demonstration test of the bunker gear's most important quality, its thermal conductivity. Exposure to high temperatures is not always detrimental to the body. Moreover, there are people who not only refuse to leave the extreme zone as quickly as possible, but, on the contrary, ask to close the door so that the heat doesn't go out. Long story short, we came up with a rather unconventional test for the firefighters' protective gear. We went to a bathhouse. Greetings.
Good afternoon, Alexander.
Murat is one of the toughest and most experienced bath attendants in our country, and we would like to conduct an experiment with you. We're going to enter the steam room. Thus, you are going to go there in your birthday suit. And I'm going to be dressed like this. And you're going to sit there for as long as you can. When you feel like you've got enough, and that'll do for you, you'll go out, and we'll measure your body temperature with sensors.
Yeah.
And then we'll measure the temperature inside of the fireman's protective suit. There. That way we'll determine the time limit for a well-prepared person, right? In fairly hot conditions. And find out how well my suit will withstand the high temperature.
Great.
Shall we try?
Of course. We might even add it to our armory.
So, shall we?
Let's go. Actually, it's not usual to sit in a Russian bath. You're supposed to lie here. That's what these large platforms are here for. So, what's it for? It's done so you can lie flat and let the bath attendant pump the steam evenly on your body, or do it yourself at a steady temperature.
But you know what? I'm amazed that the temperature on our sensors, it doesn't rise at all that much. I mean, I thought you'd have over 120 degrees on the surface. But in fact, we can see that it's 99.97 degrees. And I have 79. And well, now, the steam's right up. The temperature is also rising.
Yes.
104.
So that means there's a warm-up.
But you know, I pulled out my hand, and it feels really hot in here. I feel like putting it back in the glove.
We've evaporated around 5 quarts of water by now. If you convert it to steam, there'll be something around 9,155 cubic yards of steam.
So that's it, we're leaving.
After you then.
Let's see, 104, 99, 100?
100 degrees.
So 104 degrees, I've got 80. Well, let's go then. Well, I think it was a very interesting experiment. Surely you've never been in a steam room with a fireman before.
This is the first time I've ever been at the steam room with a fireman.
Well, I didn't break a sweat, but to be honest, it's really getting hot for me now. That's because the temperature of the protective suit rose, and now I have 91 degrees inside of it. Although the entire time we spent sitting in the steam room for 10 minutes, it was around 82 to 84 degrees, right? And it didn't rise above that. While Marat had about 104 degrees the same time. And to tell you the truth, the only feeling of discomfort I got was the feeling right on top of my head, under the helmet. Yeah, so the steam passed me. And in the place where the straps touched my head, there's this space there that really felt uncomfortable, even though there was an inner liner.
Well, yes, that's because you and I were in a real Russian bath. Yes, in the dome bath. The overall temperature there is rather low, 140 to 160 degrees, and the main effect comes from the steam. Therefore, the steam has probably come through your helmet here, and it began to raise the temperature inside then.
Okay, Marat, thank you. Unfortunately, I won't be able to remove the glove so quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next type of firefighting equipment testing is even more unconventional. The firefighter training held in a swimming pool is not absurd, but a vital necessity.
Just like we test and train firemen in fire, the real fire, we must prepare them for a similarly extreme and stressful situation in the water. Many things can happen in a fire. It can break out, for example, in a sauna or at a recreation complex, and in an environment with zero visibility. In an absolutely smoke-filled room, the fireman can fall into water by accident.
One would think that a fireman in full bunker gear with a belt, heavy oxygen tank, wearing boots, and a protective coverall should sink like a brick. But nevertheless, firemen float on the surface like corks.
The protective coveralls take a very long time to get soaked. The longer the fireman's breathing, the less air remains in the cylinder, which raises the buoyancy of the cylinder itself, which loses its weight. But then again, we should remember that basically all of the compressed air cylinders firemen use are made of composite materials after all.
The fireman's equipment is quite capable of protecting its owner from drowning as well. The breathing apparatus remains fully functional even at shallow depths. During one experiment, up to 26 pounds of cargo was hooked to the firemen, and they still remained unsinkable.
The most interesting thing about that experiment, if you can call it such, was that one of our employees volunteered to participate, and he can't even swim. In the end, he calmly walked on the bottom at 16 feet depth with our fellow divers and instructors. He swam in the pool in full bunker gear, with breathing equipment, in coveralls, in a helmet, all of that, and he even liked it.
The protective equipment passes a number of tests and experiments. But, of course, the most important test is the psychological one. A firefighter should not just believe in his equipment, he must make sure it actually protects him. Now, as a member of the squad, I will test the fireman's protective gear on my own. We are going down. I gather that the conditions are really tough there, right?
The conditions are as close to field ones as possible. We will work through a passage as part of the squad, check how the gear of ours works, how it abstracts heat and resists the fire. To do this, we will need a gasoline blowtorch, a sledgehammer, and a crowbar. We're going to pry open metal structures which conditionally represent the rubble. And on our way, there'll be all sorts of obstructions in the form of the rubble, and there will be a door that will have to be knocked down with a sledgehammer.
Got it. So the temperature is very high, there's smoke, and breathing without the apparatus would be impossible, right?
As close to real as it can get.
Well, I'm ready.
Squad, turn on the apparatus.
The first obstacle is the rubble blocking the access to the door. I easily deal with it using the gasoline blowtorch. The temperature in this room is still not so high, but the smoke and the combustion gases in the air pose a fatal danger to all of us. A large wood fire heats the air under the ceiling to 1,112 degrees. A real-life fire at an ordinary apartment can have the same temperature. You can immediately feel the most powerful thermal effect here, which my coveralls have withstood so far. To feel the real temperature, I took my glove off. It's hard to say how many degrees there were exactly, but the sensations were similar to those you experience when you bring your hand close to a fire. Now my task is to take the dummy out of the fire area, and there can be no slack cut here. I load the 177-pound dummy on my shoulders, and then I have to work my way out while carrying it. So Maxim, was it close to the real conditions?
Different kinds of scenarios can play during a fire. Various materials are flammable, not just and not necessarily wood. We understand that our suits, they protect us, but then again, its abilities aren't endless, and a lot more depends on the professional training of the firefighters here.
You have to keep in mind that even the most modern protective fireman gear can still withstand no more than 15 seconds of direct fire effect. In critical situations, everything depends on the training and the preparation of the firefighter, right?
Right.
Thank you. And you guys, thank you all.